So both teams, guys, are dealing with some uncertainty at quarterback. Baylor, Blake Shapen suffered a head injury in that game at West Virginia last week, and we know there's a lot of emphasis on head injuries these days. Dave Aranda said this week that Shapen would still need to be evaluated, and his status for the game against Kansas was kind of up in the air. Meanwhile, the breakout star for the Jayhawks, Jalen Daniels, has missed the last couple games and looks doubtful to return for this one. I did see on Twitter where he was disputing some reports that he was out for the year, but so how does the backup quarterback situation maybe change the complexion of things for these teams? And is one team in a better situation than the other? Johnny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's funny, when Blake went out, he didn't look wobbly or anything. He went into the tent for a few minutes, came back, looked like he's walking okay. So I don't know. It will be interesting whether he plays. Like you said, there's obviously a lot of interest after Tua, and I think teams are probably going to be a little more careful because of that, even down to the college level. So, I thought Kyron Drones looked pretty good. I'd say the first few series, he looked okay. Then he threw a pretty bad interception near the end of the game. But I think they have confidence in him. Obviously, he's played very little, and but Shapen had played very little before he went in last year. So I think they have some confidence in him, but it's interesting that both teams could be starting, the guys who usually back up the starters.
I did see a tweet from somebody, I don't remember who it was. It said that Drones looked like he had a little RG3 in him, and I was like, let's tap the brakes here, man.
Might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, that's kind of royalty here in Waco when you start bringing Robert's name into it. Blair, what do you say?
Well, this is one area where Kansas might have a little bit of advantage when it comes to the experience of a backup quarterback. Jason Bean is the backup. Jalen Daniels was injured in close to the end of the first half of the game at TCU or against TCU, and so Jason Bean, who had started the majority of last season, enters the game, and in the second half throws 4 touchdown passes. And even though it's at that point, I think it had been established that TCU was the better team, Kansas was matching TCU in that offense touchdown for touchdown until the very end, and TCU pulled it out. So I think Kansas feels okay about Jason being a quarterback. Now, Jalen Daniels was a difference maker, a true dual threat quarterback, and I think it took a defense's bias. Defenses really hadn't seen him. It had just he played a little bit last year, and he was the quarterback for the game against Texas. But it was scouting. He was not a well-scouted quarterback, and you could just tell the way he played against Houston, West Virginia, some of the teams early, that they had no idea how to stop him. I think he was the best player in the conference for the first month of the season in September. Well, he's hurt, and Brice, you're right. It was reported by a newspaper in Kansas that he had a shoulder sepuration that was going to keep him out the rest of the season. And that did not come from the university, and it certainly didn't come from Jalen Daniels, who took to Twitter to update his status, and with those eyeballs, the pair of eyeballs. So
yeah.
The news of Jalen Daniels' season-ending injury was a little premature. Listen, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play the rest of the season. And you know how it goes in college football. Coaches will, they'll kind of play some games with injury news and injury reports, and I don't blame them. You want opponents to be prepared for a couple of different quarterbacks, but it's going to be Bean this week, and I think that he'll acquit himself well. Now, he is not as mobile as Jalen Daniels, but he's got a better arm. So that's something Baylor is well aware of, and so that's where Kansas is right now. If Jalen Daniels plays the season finale against Kansas State or in the bowl game, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't expect to see him for the next few games.